Vegeta had faced enemies that could destroy planets, gods who could erase entire worlds with a single movement, and warriors who had pushed him beyond every limit he once believed was possible. He had survived Frieza, Cell, Majin Buu, Broly, Moro, Granola, and battles that should have ended his life countless times. But this time was different. This time, Vegeta wasn't fighting to win. He wasn't fighting to prove that he was stronger than Goku. He wasn't fighting for pride. He was fighting simply because there was no one else left standing. The battlefield was completely destroyed, the sky had turned black, and pieces of the planet were floating through the atmosphere like fragments of a broken world. Vegeta was on his knees, barely able to breathe, his armor shattered and blood running down the side of his face. In front of him stood an enemy that even Vegeta had never imagined could exist. It wasn't stronger because it had more raw power. It was stronger because every attack Vegeta launched against it simply disappeared. Punches vanished. Energy blasts vanished. Even Vegeta's most destructive techniques were being erased before they could reach their target. And high above the battlefield, Beerus was watching. Whis stood beside him with his staff in his hand, completely silent. Beerus had seen countless mortal battles. He had watched planets disappear, civilizations rise, and warriors challenge enemies far beyond their understanding. Normally, nothing about a mortal fight was enough to surprise him. But this time, Beerus wasn't bored. He was watching Vegeta. Whis noticed it immediately. He asked Beerus whether he intended to intervene. Beerus didn't answer. Whis asked again. Still nothing. Then Whis reminded him of the rule. A god of destruction was not permitted to interfere when a mortal's death had already been determined by the natural course of an event. Beerus knew the rule better than anyone. If a mortal entered a battle and lost, the god of destruction could not simply erase the opponent because he disliked the outcome. Gods were not supposed to become protectors of individual mortals. Their responsibility was destruction, not rescue. Beerus had followed that rule for millions of years. He had watched warriors die without lifting a finger. He had destroyed worlds without hesitation. He had never allowed emotion to influence his role. But then Vegeta stood back up. He could barely move. His legs were shaking. His breathing was broken, yet he looked at the enemy and smiled. The enemy asked why he was smiling when he couldn't even stand properly. Vegeta answered that he had been in worse situations before. The enemy laughed and told him that this time there would be no recovery, no miracle, and no Goku arriving at the last second. Vegeta looked toward the sky for just a moment. He knew Goku wasn't coming. He knew Bulma was far away. He knew Trunks and Bulla were safe. He knew there was no backup. Then he lowered his head and whispered that he didn't need anyone to save him. Beerus heard those words. Something changed in his expression. Whis noticed it. He asked Beerus whether he was going to let Vegeta die. Beerus finally answered, "He's a Saiyan." Whis replied that there were many Saiyans. Beerus looked down at Vegeta and said, "Not like him." The enemy attacked again. Vegeta raised his arms, but the impact sent him through several mountains. The ground exploded beneath him. For several seconds, there was no movement. Whis watched the smoke. Beerus remained completely still. Whis reminded him that Vegeta's life force was almost gone. Beerus told him that he knew. Whis then asked whether Beerus was going to allow it to continue. Beerus said yes. Whis looked surprised. Beerus explained that there were rules even gods had to follow. If Beerus interfered now, he would not simply be saving a mortal. He would be changing an outcome that had already been decided. Whis understood. The gods observed countless events across the universe, and if they constantly interfered whenever they became attached to someone, the balance between mortals and gods would collapse. Beerus had destroyed civilizations without emotion. He had watched mortal champions fall. He had never broken this rule, not once. But Vegeta emerged from the crater. His body was barely functioning. His eyes were almost closed, yet his energy began rising again. The enemy stared at him in disbelief. Vegeta transformed into Ultra Ego. Purple energy erupted around him, but even that wasn't enough. The enemy attacked him repeatedly. Vegeta allowed the attacks to hit him, using the pain to increase his destructive power. Every blow made him stronger, but every blow also pushed his body closer to complete failure. Beerus watched as Vegeta continued fighting. Whis told him that Vegeta was going to destroy his own body if he continued. Beerus said that Vegeta knew. Whis asked why Vegeta wasn't retreating. Beerus answered that Vegeta wasn't fighting because he thought he could win. He was fighting because someone had to stand there. The enemy finally landed a devastating attack directly against Vegeta's chest. His Ultra Ego transformation disappeared. Vegeta fell forward. His hands hit the ground. He tried to push himself up, but his arms collapsed. The enemy walked toward him. It told him that this was the end. Vegeta looked at the ground and remembered Bulma. He remembered the first time Trunks had called him father. He remembered Bulla running toward him when she was a child. He remembered Goku standing across from him on countless battlefields. He remembered his father. He remembered Frieza. He remembered Planet Vegeta. And then he remembered something he had learned only recently. His strength didn't belong to his bloodline. It didn't belong to his title. It belonged to him. Vegeta tried to stand. He failed. The enemy raised its hand. Beerus closed his eyes. Whis quietly said, "Lord Beerus." Beerus opened his eyes. The enemy launched the final attack, and Beerus disappeared. The attack stopped. Not slowed. Not blocked. Stopped. Beerus stood between Vegeta and the enemy with one hand raised. The entire battlefield became silent. Even the enemy looked confused. Beerus stared at it with an expression that was completely different from his normal bored attitude. There was no amusement in his eyes. There was no curiosity. There was only anger. The enemy asked who he was. Beerus answered, "Someone you should have never forced to become interested." Whis appeared beside Vegeta and immediately began stabilizing his condition. Vegeta looked up and saw Beerus standing in front of him. He couldn't understand what had happened. Beerus had just interfered. He had broken the rule. The enemy told Beerus that he had no right to interfere in a mortal battle. Beerus said that it was correct. The enemy then asked why he had done it. Beerus didn't answer immediately. He looked down at Vegeta. The Saiyan Prince was barely conscious. Beerus remembered the first time he had met Vegeta. He remembered a proud young prince who had been terrified of Frieza but refused to admit it. He remembered Vegeta challenging him despite knowing the enormous difference in power. He remembered Vegeta training with Whis. He remembered Vegeta learning destruction energy. He remembered every time Vegeta had failed and returned stronger. Beerus had watched him change from a selfish warrior, obsessed with pride, into a man who had put himself between danger and his family without thinking twice. The enemy attacked Beerus. Beerus caught the attack with one finger. The enemy released everything it had. Beerus didn't move. Then Beerus said one sentence. "You're not killing him." The enemy asked why. Beerus finally smiled. "Because I said so." Beerus raised his hand. A tiny sphere of destruction appeared. The enemy immediately realized what it was. Hakai. It tried to escape, but Beerus moved faster. The sphere expanded. The entire battlefield shook. Whis looked at Beerus and realized what he had done. Beerus had not merely attacked the enemy. He had used divine destruction against a mortal opponent in order to save another mortal. The consequences would be enormous. Whis asked whether Beerus understood what would happen. Beerus said yes. Whis asked whether he cared. Beerus looked at Vegeta. Yes. Vegeta woke up on Beerus's planet. His body had been repaired, but he could still feel the pain from the battle. Bulma was there. Trunks and Bulla were safe. Goku was standing near the doorway. Vegeta immediately asked what had happened. Goku told him that Beerus had saved him. Vegeta became silent. He didn't understand why. Goku smiled and said that maybe Beerus had finally started caring about them. Vegeta rejected the idea. Beerus didn't care about mortals. At least, that was what Vegeta had always believed. Vegeta walked outside and found Beerus sitting beneath a tree. He asked him why he had interfered. Beerus told him that it wasn't important. Vegeta demanded an answer. Beerus said that Vegeta had been annoying him for years. Vegeta became angry and said that wasn't an answer. Beerus sighed and told him that sometimes mortals became inconveniently difficult to erase. Vegeta stared at him. He knew Beerus was hiding something. Vegeta asked whether Beerus had broken a rule. Beerus didn't answer. Vegeta asked again. Beerus finally said yes. Vegeta asked what would happen. Beerus said that the other gods would know. The Grand Minister would know. The higher authorities could question his decision. Beerus could potentially be punished for interfering with mortal fate. Vegeta asked why he had taken that risk. Beerus looked at him. "Because you weren't supposed to die." Vegeta said that warriors die. Beerus agreed. Vegeta said that he had accepted death. Beerus replied that he hadn't. Vegeta stared at him. Beerus explained that there was a difference between saving someone because they were weak and saving someone because their story wasn't finished. Vegeta had spent his entire life believing strength was the only thing that mattered. But Beerus had watched him change. The Vegeta standing in front of him was no longer the same person who had arrived on Earth as an enemy. He was a father, a husband, a rival, a protector. A warrior who had finally learned that pride didn't mean refusing help. Beerus told Vegeta that if he had died on that battlefield, he wouldn't simply have lost a warrior. The universe would have lost someone who was still changing. Vegeta asked whether Beerus was saying he was important. Beerus said no. Vegeta looked annoyed. Beerus smiled. "You're not important." Vegeta became furious. Beerus continued. "You're dangerous." Vegeta stopped. Beerus told him that was why he had intervened. Vegeta had reached a point where his potential could no longer be measured by the power he currently possessed. Every time the universe tried to place a limit on him, he broke it. The gods had seen mortals become powerful before, but Vegeta was different because he actively rejected the idea that his future had already been decided. Vegeta asked whether Beerus was afraid of what he might become. Beerus smiled. Maybe. The consequences arrived sooner than Beerus expected. The sky above the planet changed. Whis immediately sensed the presence of another divine energy. Beerus looked upward and knew exactly what was happening. The other gods of destruction had learned what he had done. A portal opened. Several divine figures appeared. They questioned Beerus about his actions. Beerus didn't apologize. They told him that he had violated one of the oldest restrictions governing gods of destruction. Beerus said that he knew. They asked why he had done it. Beerus said he had his reasons. Then one of them pointed toward Vegeta. They said the mortal was the reason. Vegeta stepped forward. He told them that if they had a problem, they could speak to him directly. Beerus told Vegeta to stay out of it. Vegeta refused. He had spent his life being told that gods were beyond his reach. He wasn't going to stand behind Beerus now. One of the gods laughed. They told Vegeta that mortals were not supposed to challenge divine authority. Vegeta smiled. He said he had heard that before. The gods prepared to punish Beerus. Then Whis appeared between them. He calmly explained that Beerus's decision could not be judged so simply. The event Beerus had interfered with was connected to a threat that had already violated the natural balance of the universe. The enemy wasn't an ordinary mortal. It had been manipulating energy beyond the boundaries of normal existence. Beerus's intervention had prevented a much larger catastrophe. The gods argued. Whis remained calm. Then the Grand Minister appeared. Everyone became silent. He looked at Beerus, then at Vegeta, then at the battlefield records. He knew what had happened. He told Beerus that technically he had violated the rule. Beerus accepted it. Then the Grand Minister said something unexpected. The rule existed to prevent gods from changing mortal history for personal reasons. But Beerus's action had created a different result. He hadn't changed Vegeta's destiny. He had revealed it. The Grand Minister explained that Vegeta's death had never been a fixed point. The enemy had manipulated the event to make it appear inevitable. Beerus had broken the rule because he had unknowingly sensed that something was wrong. Beerus looked surprised. The Grand Minister told him that his instinct had been correct. Vegeta had never been destined to die there. The enemy had created a false destiny around him. Beerus hadn't saved Vegeta from fate. He had saved him from someone else's manipulation of fate. The punishment was canceled. But there was one final warning. The Grand Minister looked directly at Vegeta. He said that the universe had now noticed him. Vegeta asked what that meant. The Grand Minister answered that, until now, Vegeta had been a powerful mortal. After Beerus's intervention, the gods had begun to pay attention. And when gods began paying attention to a mortal, the mortal's life rarely remained ordinary. Then the Grand Minister disappeared. Beerus looked at Vegeta. Vegeta looked back. Goku smiled. Vegeta sighed. He knew exactly what this meant. Another battle was coming. Later that night, Vegeta returned to the training area. He expected Beerus to leave him alone. Instead, Beerus appeared behind him. He told Vegeta that there was something he hadn't explained. Vegeta turned around. Beerus said that when he first met Vegeta, he didn't care about him. He was just another Saiyan Prince. But something changed over time. Vegeta had done something almost no mortal ever did. He had forced Beerus to reconsider what a mortal could become. Vegeta asked whether that was why Beerus saved him. Beerus said partially. Then he revealed the real reason. Years earlier, Beerus had once seen a possible future. In that future, Vegeta died. The universe survived. Nothing catastrophic happened. But something was missing. Beerus couldn't explain what it was. He only knew that the version of the universe without Vegeta felt wrong. At first, Beerus ignored the feeling. Then he saw another future. Vegeta survived. In that future, Vegeta and Goku reached a level of power that changed the relationship between mortals and gods. Beerus had never known which future would become real, until the battlefield. When Vegeta was about to die, Beerus suddenly realized that the future he had seen was disappearing. That was why he moved. Not because Vegeta was weak. Not because Beerus had become sentimental. Because Beerus finally understood that Vegeta's existence was connected to something much larger. Vegeta asked what the future contained. Beerus refused to tell him. Vegeta demanded to know. Beerus smiled. "If I tell you, you'll try to make it happen." Vegeta said he would. Beerus said that was exactly why he couldn't tell him. Vegeta looked toward the sky. He understood. His future wasn't something Beerus could give him. It was something he had to create. Beerus walked away. Vegeta stayed there. He thought about everything that had happened. He thought about the day he was supposed to die. He thought about Beerus breaking a rule that had existed longer than most civilizations. He thought about how easily Beerus could have watched him disappear. But he didn't. And for the first time, Vegeta understood something that would have been impossible for him to accept years earlier. Sometimes accepting that someone will save you isn't weakness. Sometimes it's simply another form of trust. The next morning, Vegeta returned to Earth. Bulma asked him whether he was going to train. Vegeta said yes. She asked whether he was going to train with Goku. Vegeta smiled. "No!" Bulma asked why. Vegeta answered that he had something else to prove. He walked outside. Goku was already waiting. Goku asked what they were doing. Vegeta looked at him. "I'm going to surpass you." Goku laughed. Vegeta smiled. And for the first time, the rivalry felt different. Not like two warriors desperately trying to prove who was better, but like two Saiyans who had survived everything the universe had thrown at them and still wanted to see how far they could go. High above them, Beerus watched from a distance. Whis stood beside him. Whis asked whether Beerus regretted breaking the rule. Beerus looked at Vegeta. "No!" Whis smiled. Beerus then added one final sentence. "But if he tells anyone I said that, I'll destroy his planet." Whis laughed. Below them, Vegeta raised his energy. The sky shook, and somewhere beyond Universe 7, something ancient noticed. Something that had been watching the Saiyans for longer than even Beerus knew. Because Beerus had broken a godly rule to save Vegeta. And now the universe had learned something it was never supposed to learn. The god of destruction had chosen a mortal. And that mortal was Vegeta.